Здравейте, драги зрители! A belated Happy New Year to everyone. Before everything else, I wanted to thank you for your patience in the prior month of January. Something tragic happened that took me away from being able to work on projects. This is not the place to bring such topics up, so I'll just say, if someone you consider important hasn't been in your life for a while, maybe it won't be a bad idea to reconnect, even if for a bit. But with all of that now past, regular content can resume. Since we've got a new year ahead of us, it is best to start it positively. Because of that, and also because I got my hands on a physical copy of it, to get past the sting of Kurz's Primarch novel, we'll kick off 2025 with Soul Hunter by Aaron Dembski-Bowden, the first book of the Night Lord's Omnibus. A trilogy that offers more insight into the 8th Legion while following one of the Night Haunter's favorite sons, the brothers of his company, and their tangles with destiny. About time for me to fix the sin that is being a Night Lords fan who hasn't read it. If you'd like to join me on the journey of traversing the Omnibus and other works, as well as behold the narrative creations that are up and coming for the channel, please subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated. But without any further delay, let us get into the... Precursing the book is the short story Shadow Knight, in which we get a foundational glimpse into the psyche of the Omnibus's main character, Talos Valcoran, also known as the Soul Hunter. He is the apothecary and the de facto acting sergeant of First Claw, the first squad of Night Lords from the Legion's 10th Company, who make up his ancillary dramatis personae. In these first short pages, the Claw stalks a band of Blood Angel scouts who are hunting Talos, since in the centuries after the heresy, he has managed to slay a champion from among the Sons of Sanguinius and steal his relic power sword, Aurum, which the Brothers of the Blood have, so far unsuccessfully, striven to get back ever since. These unassuming youths of the 9th would find themselves slaughtered by the blades of the Soul Hunter's squadmates because he himself would be incapacitated by his heritage. Visions of the future brought on along with crippling pain, the same gift as that of their father, Conrad Kurz. Transitioning into the book proper, we are introduced to the 10th Company's home, the strike cruiser Covenant of Blood, a dread domain whose crew navigates in fear of their terrifying masters that roam its darkness-suffocated bowels. Speaking of said masters, their dynamics are explored in more detail, revealing that despite, technically, being united, the Night Lords are split between those that despise chaos and any corruption it brings, and those who have faltered or fully embraced the gifts of the ruinous powers. All of which is underpinned by the tenuous power struggle hanging in the Covenant's already heavy air between Talos himself and the company captain Vandred, now apparently subsumed by the Tzeentchian demon he had melded with to become the creature known as the Exalted. Of particular note are also the Soul Hunter's 2 slaves, Septimus, named so for being his 7th servant, who functions as Valcoran's personal artificer and First Claw's pilot, and Octavia, formerly Eurydice Mervalian, a navigator from a minor house, abducted by the Night Lords when they intercepted the ship she served upon at one of the fragments of their shattered home, Nostramo, guided by one of Talos's visions. Under the Exalted's order, 10th Company heeds the summons of Abaddon the Despoiler for his campaign against the Forge World of Krythe Prime, intended to swell his forces with supplies and war machines for the upcoming 13th Black Crusade. Before invading, however, the fleet assembled by the War Master makes a stop upon the penal world of Solace, where he attempts to sway Talos to his personal service. At first, with sweet promises, but when his ineptitude in their application failed, he would wound the Soul Hunter, leaving him vulnerable to the influence of a spell concocted by Abaddon's other pet sorcerers, which would put the Night Lord in front of a tribunal of avatars of the Great Four, who would in turn try to corrupt him. To the immense displeasure of the poor War Master, the entire endeavor would not bear any fruit, as this favored son of Kurz maintained his staunch refusal. Despite the hostile introduction, neither Talos, his squad, or what remained of their company had the luxury of defying Abaddon, so they continued their service in the campaign. As it went, a shakeup of the power struggle among the Night Lords would take place, resulting in a semi-white peace taking hold among them. particularly near the end of Kryth Prime's invasion, when reinforcements, including the Blood Angels, forced the War Master's fleet to break their blockade of the Forge World, during which the Covenant of Blood prevented the Vengeful Spirit from destroying another Night Lord's battle barge and took on retreating warriors from that ship's warband, then making its escape from the theater. While the climax of the book was quite action-packed, when it comes to intensity, a segment depicting the past has it beat in that regard. A detour of the pages back to the day of Conrad Kurz's death, when he had ordered for his sons to simply allow the assassin sent after him to complete her murder and leave without interruption, finalizing his vindication. But, just as he had also seen, one amongst his children would break this order, instead giving chase and finally enacting vengeance upon the assassin, none other than his very own Soul Hunter. I'm gonna be real with you guys. This may very likely be the Night Lord's bias, but I genuinely did not encounter anything in this book that my mind could register as bad. All three elements of the book that neared that border managed to slingshot right back into being either tolerable or even delightful. From least to most in that regard, we begin with Uzas. To the shock of some, I did not like Uzas at all. I don't know if it was just because to me almost everything relating to Khorne is painfully mid, but his behavior, regardless of how justified by the Blood God's influence, just felt cringe, and not the good kind. There's also the factor that he was the proverbial bomb under the table if we were to apply Alfred Hitchcock's lesson about suspense to the book, which lost him points with me. Specifically because the people he would have blown up were significantly more interesting than him. However, I find it funny that if you just replace the Z with a J, his name is the Bulgarian word for terror, Ужас. Shit, Bradley actually nailed it with that Bulgarian Night Lord's joke from a while back. Anywho, that funny word coincidence, combined with his metaphorical explosion being diffused and the literal bitch slap bestowed upon him, managed to push him past the redeeming character line. Next on the chopping block would be Vandred Anrathi, or the Exalted. As a certified chaos hater, them despising it and its corruption is one of the big reasons why I love the Night Lords. So, as you can imagine, I wasn't exactly brimming with joy to read about the supposed leader of the company who has allowed himself to be possessed and appears to have been subsumed by the demon in his flesh. Doubly so when he's beefing with and actively trying to screw over those from the company that remain more or less pure. A bastard through and through. While it was difficult, his saving grace shone through with the spectacular void combat he orchestrated when stepping into the invading Chaos Fleet's service, and the maneuver of similar skill he implemented after the man seemingly overcame the demon in order to screw over the War Master and save his brothers from a different warband. An altruistic action of brotherhood? In my band of torture murderers? Oh, that won him a good bit of favor with me. Now the peak of these three, Abaddon the Despoiler. Oh, Abby. He gave it a very remarkable shot of trying to be like his dad. Diplomatic, charismatic, inspiring. For a moment, he almost fooled me, for I have to give him props. But he is no Horus. Far from it. Which revealed itself rather quick, followed by his more usual detestable persona, as he shot Talos and left him at the supposed mercy of the ruinous powers. Then, as the assault on the Forge World began, he nearly drove the assembled Night Lord's forces into suicidal battle against the Defenders and subsequent Imperial reinforcements. His own forces gunned down multiple troop transports of the 8th Legion that tried to retreat. Despite all of that, I am not mad. Not an ounce of fury lingers in me regarding this. Why, you may ask? Because in the end, all of his plans, to conscript the Soul Hunter as a new pet seer, to claim the war machines and utter bounty of the Forge World, and even his threat of holding a gun to the Night Lord's forces' head to prevent them from deserting him, ended up as the exact same thing he is, no matter how many retcons GW gives him. Abject failure. Oh, the sheer satisfaction of that ended up being great enough to overcome any negative emotions born from his bullshit. Going to the opposite end, the three best aspects of the book were deliciously enthralling. Again, going in ascending order based on their impact, I would be remiss to not talk about Septimus and Octavia. Admittedly, you kind of need to look past the way they were recruited into service. But beyond it, both of them exhibit admirable dedication and loyalty, which is aptly rewarded by their master, at least in my opinion. Through their eyes and ventures within the Covenant of Blood's bowels, we technically get a time capsule glimpse into what Nostromo was in the days after Conrad had become its lord and before his leave, in the guise of the strike cruiser's denizen crew, which was quite fascinating. And of course, the two of them interacting together are just adorkable as heck. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how their story progresses. Above them, I would rank all of the supporting cast of First Claw, along with Seventh Claw and the Dreadnought Malkarion, showing us how the 8th Legion would have functioned, both from the worst aspects of it, backstabbing, power struggles, and constant wariness of those around you, to some of the genuinely best depictions of brotherhood I have ever seen in lore. Zarl and Sirion in particular were excellent people to get the perspective of on things, and frankly, their crop should have been the standard for all Night Lords to strive for. Malkarion became kind of a show stealer, but in a good way near the end of the book. Most of the chapters begin with quotes either directly by him, or from his teachings that had earned him the title of War Sage. So at first, you get this build-up that he is some mythical figure for the Legion, lost a long time ago. But then, he is revealed to be in the story proper, and the unsuspecting build-up hits just right. A strong, charismatic, and downright fatherly figure for the other Night Lords, he quickly puts the Exalted in his place and sets 10th Company back on the path of being more unified, rather than splintering under the power turbulence between the current captain and the Night Haunters favored. From among these characters, we get the most epic scenes in the book. Namely, when their demi-squad, less than 10 Marines, supported by a Thunderhawk piloted by Septimus, and a Land Raider, kills a venerable Warhound Titan. But my personal favorite has to be Malkarion's grudge duel, Dreadnought the Dreadnought, against Regiel the Sufferer of the Blood Angels. Specifically because, before reading about it, I thought Bjorn the Fell-Handed of the Space Wolves was the only loyalist dreadnought from the days of the Heresy that had survived to the modern day of 40k. But this champion of the blood proved me wrong, as him and the War Sage had fought on the walls of the Imperial Palace during the Siege of Terra itself. This second duel of theirs would technically end in a draw, with both war machines ravaged beyond salvation. However, to Regiel's added suffering, First Claw had managed to butcher his supporting squad of Marines, then cut him out of his sarcophagus and killed him before his ancient foe expired, thus technically making their final score 2-0 in favor of Malkarion. The very best of the whole book, to the surprise of no one I hope, has got to be the titular Soul Hunter himself. He is what Conrad Kurz should have been. A good leader who cares about the well-being of his brothers, his servants, and the Legion overall. But supplementing that is the fact that rather than allowing himself to be leashed and defeated by the visions he gets cursed with, Talos instead takes stands to either use them to his and his brother's benefit, or to instead ensure they do not come to pass, even by going against his father's orders, placing his will over the machinations of fate, just like Sanguinius had attempted during the Great Crusade and the Heresy. And the reason he does so, where his Genesire did not, is that one fundamental difference between Kurz and all other Primarchs. Talos had the time to be human, rather than just a monster. Honestly, in his demeanor I saw a drop of nobility and self-sacrifice mirroring those of Sanguinius as well. It makes me think that Aurum, the Blood Angel's blade he carries, is a symbol of that drop. Of course, he achieves many successes over the course of the book, but amusingly, their weight and significance, at least narratively, was proportionally opposite of how grand they were, especially the one that stands above them all. Killing a vast spaceship by murdering its captain was by far his grandest accomplishment, tearing out the princeps of the dead Warhound out of his god machine, delivering the shameful end to Regiel, and staunchly rejecting the never-born filth trying to entice him into their clutches. None of it can really compare with the haunting badassery of when he found Septimus beaten nearly to death by a mob of escaped prisoners, promising him to get Octavia back from them, and then saving her, while showing the criminal dregs that while to friends he is a noble brother, he is still, very much so, a Lord of the Night. and that provoking his ire would be the worst and final mistake they ever made. Okay. Admittedly, I gushed a little too hard there. But still, on its own, the book Soul Hunter is an excellent read, offering varied perspectives, high-class action, dread, and heartfelt beats, all of which give near-perfect payoff to their build-up. To someone who is a fan of its subject matter, such as myself, it just hits that one extra octave better. In fact, I dare to call it the best opener to a trilogy that I have ever read, and I am most definitely looking forward to continuing with the other two books. Hopefully the story lives up to this license for goodwill. Now, with the book itself behind us, to further tantalize and excite you, dear viewer, the next video for this month will be another in the series of exploring the lore through an original narrative, also taking a Night Lord's perspective. This is due to a specific reason. I have a few such narrative ideas in store for presentation, but to develop them I would first need to go through specific books, and one that is kind of different, but all of them can be grouped in these topics. So this Month of Night Lords is the example for this, and you will get to set the trend for the next. Shortly after this video goes live, on the channel's community tab you'll be able to vote on the order in which you would like said topics to be presented in the 3 coming months. Voting will be open until the end of the month, allowing you to pick between Death Guard, Emperor's Children, and Necrons. Be sure to look forward to it all. In the meantime, for this video, flay the like button and leave a comment about your thoughts on the novel Soul Hunter. If you have read it, what was your favorite part about it? I look forward to hearing your thoughts. But until next time, I wish you all a lovely rest of your day. Do viždene.